Og næst komið að Ceciliu Blank. Hennar fyrirlestur fjallar einstaklingsbundna aðstoð við sjálfsákvörðun fyrir fólk með þroskahömlun og hún mun kynna aðferðafræði JAG-miðstöðvarinnar í Svíþjóð. En JAG-miðstöðin í Svíþjóð miðstöðum notendastýrða persónulega aðstoð og þeir sem Cecilia mun tala á ensku en fólki bent á að hér ritmálstúlkur sem á að bara skrifa niður það sem sagt ekki hafa neina skoðun á því. Og það sem að þeir skrifa niður, það birtist hér á tjaldi. Men Cecilia Blank, velkommen.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here in Iceland. This exciting time you have when personal assistance is going to be a reality. I'm glad also to hear that you are fighting to make it possible for all citizens to live life in freedom. When I spent 2 days here in Reykjavik now, and I've met a lot of people who are really struggling, and it feels, I recognize very much of it when we had the first fight in Sweden to make personal assistance a reality. I have been living with personal assistance my whole life because my brother, who is 1 year older than me, he has had needs for personal assistance 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for his whole life. He has always got the support one way or another, not always from paid personal assistance, but he has always needed it. And he was a pioneer in Sweden. He had personal assistance when no one else had in the early 70s. And he had been a fighter his whole life, first to make a reality of a Swedish legislation, and then to work with and lead the organization that is one of the biggest providers of assistance in Sweden and the only provider that has a special model who is specially working with people with intellectual disabilities. And this organization's name is JAG, and it's short for the 3 Swedish words jämlikhet, assistans, and gemenskap. In English, equality, assistance, and inclusion. But in Swedish, it is the first 3 letters that form the word jag. And jag means I. And that is just as important as the 3 words, because it stands for every person's right to be the main character in one's life. And that is what self-determination is all about. Being the main character in one's life. Not being a us or we all the time. Like all these groups that much support is formed by. And not the me. Someone is doing things with me. That is history. I am doing things with assistance. And it's a wide difference. This is the board of the JAG Association in Sweden. Only persons with several large impairments, of which one is intellectual, can become a member. A member of the association, a fully member, with the right to vote and the right to be elected to the board. There are a lot of other supportive members in the organization, like myself. We have no rights at all, no decision-making in this organization except when we are employed, but we are supportive members. And my brother is in the middle. I'll point him out. This is my brother. and he is the chairman of the board. "18 years ago in Sweden, 1994, we got a new legislation that gave an individual right to personal assistance to people with large impairments and needs of service and support in their daily life. And the aims of this legislation, it was a very progressive legislation, and the aims was things that hasn't been that common in the life of people who needed a lot of support and service. It was freedom of choice, and in different levels of this service. The freedom of choice of having the service. What kind of service should you have? But also, how is it going to be provided? And how is it going to be performed in the smallest details? Self-determination is one of the aims. And it's an aim. Mark well, it's not a condition for service. Sometimes people mix this up, that to get personal assistance, you should be self-determinate. That is not the case. Personal assistance is a tool to achieve self-determination. But you must have the tool first, you know. Personal integrity is also an aim in the legislation. You should be able to be as private as anyone else. And there are the same aims for all users of personal assistance. The legislation doesn't exclude anyone or say that the service should be different for one group or another. It's the same aims for all who are entitled to the service. And personal assistance needs to be defined. And it's defined in the legislation, not exactly like this, but with the same main words. The user should decide who should give him or her personal assistance. You should be able to choose your own personal assistance. The user also should decide when assistance is needed. You should be able to make your own schedule, to use assistance when you think it's necessary, when you need it. The user decides where assistance is needed. Personal assistance is given wherever the user is. It shall never be bound to a place or a house or a special institution or a school or whatever. It's always only bound to the user, and the user is a free person who can be anywhere. And the user decides with what assistance is needed. The tasks of the assistance varies between different users. We live different lives and need assistance with different things. The user also decides in what way the assistance should be given. The small details, how do you want to do things in life? There are no other experts than the user, him or herself. So this defines personal assistance. And if the user doesn't decide all these things, then it's not personal assistance. It can be some other service, of course, but it's not personal assistance. In YOG, all the members have several large impairments, of which one is intellectual. And personal assistance should be a tool for them as well to achieve self-determination in life. So we have to discuss self-determination. And the starting point for us is that all human beings can communicate. We are totally convinced there is no living person who cannot communicate. At least you can communicate liking or disliking in a situation. People who have very large, severe impairments, it makes it difficult to speak and difficult to understand, and everything together makes the situation very complicated. You can at least communicate liking or disliking in a situation. At least to someone. And this is a starting point. That means that everyone can. Everyone has an ability to perform self-determination. if the right aids for communication is given. And it can be human aids or other aids, technical aids, of course, but for many of the YOG members, human aids are the best communication tools. It is a question of interpreting small, personal signals that varies in different situations. It is impossible to write a handbook. You have to know the person very well. And the second thing is the environment have to show respect to the decisions taken, because if no one listens when you communicate, even if they understand, that's not enough. You also have to show respect to the decisions. These are conditions, but everyone can. It's more of a question of the environment. And everyone wants to. Sometimes we hear that, well, she doesn't want to decide in her life. She wants us to decide. Does she? Everyone has a wish to be self-determinated if it is efficient, if it is meaningful, and if it doesn't have negative consequences in the social network. And the more dependent you are on the people around you, the less interested you are in being against them or saying things that you don't think they will like, that won't be practical for them. This is a very important factor when you're trying to be self-determinate in life, that the environment shows that we are here for you. It's your will, your wishes and needs that counts. The support to self-determination is in personal assistance given in several levels, and every level is just as important. Many of the members have a legal representative, and I know this looks different in Iceland because you have another system, but I think that you can see the levels and see the role that this person have, the legal representative. It's important that there is one person who has the right to interpret. Because if many people are trying to interpret, there is a mishmash of different people's thoughts and wills and underlying values. For children, it's the parents who interpret, like for any child. But for adults, in Sweden, there is a good man appointed if you need it. You have to apply for it, or the municipality has to see that you really need it. But there is a good man appointed by court. And I think you get a translation there that is the correct one in the text. There are also a system with guardianship, but that's the heavy part, and just I think it's 1% or something who use a guardian. Good man is the common way to get a legal representative, someone who make your voice heard and who interprets your needs and wishes and gives you support to come to your own decisions. And that's important, not to tell what people in general would like in this kind of situation, but someone who knows you and can interpret the communication. So the YOG model starts, of course, with a member. The member is king. The member is everything in YOG. The organization consists of members, listens to members, and serves members on all levels. But the members can use their legal representative to be an active part and to have self-determination in the assistance. And the legal representative and or the member, because not every member have this. Some of them are just taking their own decisions and communicating directly to the next step, which is the service guarantor. Because YOG is providing personal assistance to people who don't want or can be supervisors themselves for their assistance. And the service guarantor takes that role. And then after that comes personal assistance. And these different roles in the assistance. The legal representative interprets, of course, but also represents and speaks for the user. The legal representative also supports in choosing and applying for personal assistance, if that is what the user wants, or other services. He or she also guards the quality of the assistance, appoints and gives instructions to the service guarantor according to the member's wishes and needs. And if there is no legal representative, the user, the member in JAG, does this himself, of course. The service guarantor is appointed by the member and or the good man or the legal representative. The service guarantor is responsible for the quality of the personal assistance. That means recruiting the assistants that the member would have chosen or helps to choose very often. Supervises the assistants, tell them what to do, giving them instructions in how to give the assistance. Scheduling the assistants, telling them who is going to work when and where. And administrating the assistants locally, doing the timetables, reporting which assistant has been working when. This is a quality mission. There is also a responsibility for the continuity in the assistance, to be safe. Therefore, the service guarantor should always be available by phone. When an assistant is ill or has a child that is ill, calls in to the service guarantor and says, I won't be able to work today, in worst case, tomorrow maybe. And then the service guarantor finds substitutes. And if it's not possible to find a substitute, then the service guarantor gives the assistance himself. And this commission can be shared between two people, one maybe for quality and one for continuity. Or you share the continuity mission if the assistance is given all day around. It takes two persons maybe to share being always available. This is very individual how it's organized, but this is the role of this person. And then the last role, personal assistants. Their role is to compensate the impairments of the user, according to instructions from the service guarantor, of course. So this is at delegation levels to keep the power with the user. Personal assistants assist with initiatives and choices in daily life, yes, but only within the frames given by the service guarantor. And if they assist with communication, their role is to interpret, but not to speak on behalf of the member or to represent him. And there is a big difference. And the organization of JAG is built to empower the user. And this is sometimes a little bit provoking picture because the left one is a traditional structure. We have them still in Sweden, in other services, where the staff, the employer organize the staff, and the staff form a group, sometimes a team. They cooperate, they communicate about how to give service to the users, and the users are receivers of care or service. But the power, you see, is in the box on the top. And this picture shows the personal assistance structure as we see it, where the employer is support for the user. The user has the power, is holding the balloons, but he or she cannot or don't want to take the whole responsibility, of course, of being an employer. So JAG is a support for the user. And behind the user, invisible in this picture, is maybe a legal representative. But the service guarantor is there by the user's side, helping in organizing. And the personal assistants, they have individual commissions. They can have different tasks. One can have the obligation to always go out with the garbage. It's very unfair, but that is possible. And the other can have the task to always go with the user dancing in Fridays, because she's such a good dancer. So you can give the assistants different tasks. They don't form a team. If you want to, you can gather them and give them information at the same time, of course, if it's practical, but you don't have to. And in reality then, how does this work? We made a study some years ago now. You can find it on this website, www.jag.se/kunskap, which means knowledge. There was a project where we interviewed people 10 years after they had personal assistance, sometimes more, and asked them, how is life? How is it about self-determination? How is it about family life? How has life changed? And so on. And I'm not going to give you all the information in this, you have to read that. But I want to quote some things from this report, because it shows in practice really how this works for single persons. And it's very individual. We have to call it a model because that's what people expect. But I don't like the word model because it says that this is the way you have to do it. And so I have to emphasize, this is a very flexible model. The frames are quite big, and you can design your own system for your assistance. There are 400 different JAG models all around Sweden, because we have 400 members today who have personal assistance. But these are 3 examples. Eva was born at the end of the 1950s and lives in her own flat. She has 2 sisters. One of them is the personal representative, legal representative, as I said now, and works as the personal assistant for 8 hours a week. The other sister is the service guarantor and works full-time as Eva's personal assistant. Eva shows by her body language and gestures that she is proud of being able to manage her own life. Eva shows by clear gestures what she wants. It's important for Eva to make it clear that she is the one who decides, says her personal representative. Another member is Ingemar, who says little himself, says more if he is feeling well. If he needs something, he points to a letterboard. Otherwise, we try to interpret his facial expressions and watch his hand mimicry, says his father, who is also Ingemar's personal representative. He helps Ingemar to make decisions by asking questions. If he wants something new, we try it out. Once we went to a wrestling match because he wanted to, but once there he changed his mind, so we just had to come home again. It's important to be able to make last-minute changes. And Björn, he chooses which assistant will be appointed. His mother describes how things might go at a recruitment session. First, I make an initial choice of 2 or 3 possible people. They get a chance to meet Björn, and we take photographs of them. When they have gone home, Björn and I look at the photos. I ask him if he wants any of them to come back. Björn selects by pointing or holding up the photograph of one of the assistants. That was some examples. And you're very welcome to ask me questions.
Mér langar að spyrja hvernig gengur að ráða aðstoðarfólk í þetta?
Someone has to translate, I'm sorry. In the beginning, in 1994, and I would say during the whole 90s, the first years, it was difficult, sometimes. it's very depending on the economic times in the country, really. If there is a lot of people who are on the labor market free, of course it's easier. Good times, it's more difficult. But in Sweden, it was a big difference after 7 or 8 years when personal assistant became a real profession. In the beginning, it was something that you maybe did while waiting for doing something else. But after some years, people were starting looking at it as a real profession. You ask people in school today, some of the kids are, if you ask them what they are going to be when they are adults, some of them answer personal assistant, because today it has high status, it's easy to recruit, and sometimes we have 100 applications when we advertise. So today and the last 10-15 years hasn't been any problems. But of course, if you have very special qualifications, if you need a very special education for your assistants, then it can be a problem, but not generally. Yes.
Hejsan.
Hej.
Finns det några begränsningar? Kan man hyra hur många som helst för att assistera på isländska? Hverjar takmarkanirnar? Má ráða eins marga þjónustuaðila og hver vill eða?
Yes. I haven't been so very detailed about the Swedish system here because it takes a while to show you all the details. But there is an assessment made by an authority about the number of hours of personal assistance. So you get a decision from the authorities that says maybe 168 hours per week. That is all the day around, or less, and sometimes even more. But this decision is the base for for the assistance. So when we have a member comes to us with a decision, we can only provide the number of hours that is in the decision. That is all that is financed. So, yeah. There is a. Okay, sorry.
Hello.
Oh.
You said that it was that personal assistance is. It's a high standard job now.
Well, more or less, yes.
Does it come with some education, or how do you become a personal assistant? Are there any specific requirements?
The users chooses themselves what kind of requirements they need from their assistants. So it's very different between different users. And we have members in YAG who wants to hire people with an education within care, for example, and they are allowed to do that. Then they write that in their advertisements. And then we have the opposite. We have members who would never hire anyone with a care education because they are experts in a way that they don't want. They come in my life and tell me what is right and wrong, and I hate it. So, and we have the whole range. But there is no... the state doesn't have any demands. You can choose your own assistants, really. And there are several educations that might be good for you. But the main thing is you have to be chosen by a user. That is. So, and then many of the members of YAG, they offer education to their assistants. So even if you haven't got the right skills when you're hired, you can develop them when working and have education. So, and that is for many assistants an important part that you can develop within the work, that you can learn more and be a better assistant, and that we support that. Yeah.
Sá einhverja Rannveig hérna?
Hi, thank you for a very interesting talk. My name is Rannveig. I'm from the University of Iceland, Center for Disability Studies. I was wondering if you could be a little more specific about the process of assessing the amount of support people receive. Is there a specific tool? What is the role of the person who will receive the support? how actively do they negotiate, or is a tool by the authorities applied to their needs, or sort of a little more about the process and the involvement of the people who are applying for this kind of assistance. There was another question. What was it going to? I can't remember, but this was the main thing. Thank you.
Yes, the assessment is made by a state authority. We have a special model in Sweden where the state pays the main part of the assistance, and therefore they are also making the assessments. Who pays? Assess. But the state perform this through the social insurance offices in Sweden, and they are about 25 of them all around the country. They haven't been using the same application form or anything like that. Traditionally, the needs for personal assistance is assessed through that the user describes his needs in a personal way, very often as, this is my day, this is what I need during a normal day. This is a range within it can vary. And if I describe that I need personal assistance all my time awakened, it doesn't matter what kind of activities I have. Even if I sit on the sofa and watch TV, I have to have an assistant beside me. It's dangerous to be alone. Then you won't be needed to describe all the details so very much, of course. And this has been quite a flexible way to the person is expert on his or her own needs. And we like that model quite well. Unfortunately, the state wants to save money, so now they are making up a standard application form. In the beginning, I was in a group that had the task to work with this. And in the beginning, they wanted to make a 91 pages long application form. And it's ridiculous, because if you go down and how many minutes does it take for you to wash your hair, how many minutes does it take for you to wash your hands, how many times per day do you do it, and how much assistance do you need, and well, like that. It's ridiculous, but everyone doesn't think it's ridiculous, unfortunately. So maybe we are going in that direction in Sweden. But I don't think it's going to be cheaper, because people don't apply for more assistance that they need. It's not a very positive, nice thing to have personal assistance. So the moments you can manage on your own, most people want to, of course.
I'm thinking, I know some cooperatives do have like some training that every assistant has to go to before, like, you know, about the philosophy and stuff like that. Do you have some kind of, you know, like a, not like, you know, just training about, yeah, the philosophy, you know, what it is, before they can start working, or how is it in New York?
No, not before they can start working. The most important part is the introduction given by the user himself and or the service guarantor, of course. And we have a model for offering assistance to double up with an experienced assistant during sometimes several weeks before start working. And that introduction, personal assistance should be personal. That is the most important. But we also offer a one-day introduction. If the user wants, it's the user's choice to send his or her assistants to this introduction day. But we have it, and we offer all the assistants to go to that day when we discuss things like the difference between feeding someone and assisting someone to eat, the ideological parts. What is personal assistance? And what is this company, this organization that they are employed in? Our history and things like that. That is good to know.
Hvað vestræn föllin?
I didn't get the question. Okay. Har vi något om översättningen? Okej. Jaha. Okej. Okay, no more questions?
Fleiri spurningar, hann
Var það sem hugsaði móðin þín oft meira bróðin heldur en þig?
That was a personal question. No, actually I didn't. This is a whole other lecture. It's a speech of his own. How to be a sibling to a person who needs personal assistance 24 hours a day. And in Sweden there are a lot of people, and if you wait 10 or 12 or 15 years, there will be a lot of people who can tell you about this, because many children in Sweden have personal assistance. And I think that it's a good experience, really, because it makes it possible to be a family. I can tell you that the most awful moments in my life with my brother was when he was sent away. When he was sent away to an institution for a while when he was a child, that was awful. And I also remember the occasions when he was on respite care, where we had because he had no personal assistance. Sometimes it was impossible to solve it another way. And he was in respite care while we were doing other funny things. We were having good times without him. And I felt that was so unfair to him, really. Why couldn't he be with us? So I think that siblings and children, it's important to feel that you are a family, that you can be together. And if there is an assistant with you, that doesn't matter. But the sibling being absent, that is no good.
Fleiri spurningar? Það var engar fleiri spurningar, það var kannski Ástríð. Ég ætla að biðja þeim að koma hérna aðeins upp, þú ert ekki alveg sloppinn. Þannig ég með svona skipulegningu og svona ráðstefnu. Okay. Það gleymist alltaf eitthvað og við ætlum hérna að færa fyrirlesum blóm, en það gleymdist það ná í blómin. En nú þið sem sé komin, þannig að þið báðar tvær gjörðu þið svo vel.